Welcome to the Mies Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Sharkey, the founder and CEO of Mies, the culinary operating system for food professionals. On the show, I'll be interviewing world-class entrepreneurs in the food space that are shifting the paradigm of how we innovate and operate in our industry. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the show.
They say art mirrors life with every stroke of the pencil. I'm giving you folks a glimpse into my experiences you could trace like a stencil.
My guests today are Chris Bonomo and Greg Dunmore, founders of the Japanese Pantry, a purveyor of some of the most incredible Japanese products available in the US. I've been buying from the Japanese Pantry for over 5 years now, having first learned about them through this project I was working on with a chef friend, where we were using this liquid koji that's only available through the Japanese Pantry. Since then, I've become pretty obsessed with all their products, and it's not only the quality, i.e. some of like the best soy sauces and miso and katsuobushi and nori and rice vinegar and more, but also these amazing stories and people behind the products that Chris and Greg tell so well. Their passion is really obvious when you hear them speak about the producers and all their travels through Japan. I think everyone today will learn a lot about the nuance and the depth and the labor love behind these products, and for me, this is part of what makes Japanese cuisine so special. A dish can be so simple with just like a handful of ingredients, but behind each one of those ingredients can be this treasure trove of inspiring stories. So we're going to talk about a lot of these products today and dig pretty deep. And we'll also talk about the origin behind how Chris and Greg started the company and a bunch more. So I hope you enjoy as much as I did. Welcome to the podcast.
Cool. Right on. Excited.
Thank you. We're so excited. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to have you both here. And honestly, like a real nice surprise having you here, Greg, because we haven't met before. I've talked to Chris a bunch of times, but we haven't met. So I know a bit about the backstory. And honestly, today, if it's cool with you guys, I kind of just want to geek out on all the products because there's so many stories.
Whatever you want to do. I
have most of them at home, which, you know, like as I was just saying, having a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a wife that doesn't eat everything, mostly they're for me, but I also gift them a lot to my friends, you know, just like a gift card to Japanese Pantry. So let's do the obligatory, what is Japanese Pantry? And a little about, you know, your background as a chef. And you guys met, obviously, because Chris, you were a regular at Greg's restaurant, which typically means you guys would open a restaurant together. That didn't happen.
Thank the Lord.
You went another route. So there's some intelligence in the room here. But yeah, a little bit about your backgrounds and about Japanese Pantry. And then we're just going to kind of geek out for a bit on the products because there's a bunch I want to learn and that I'm sure that our audience of chefs and restaurant owners will love. And then we kind of like see where it goes.
Great.
So I'll throw it over to you guys. Chris, if you want to start.
Greg and I started the Japanese Pantry a little over 7 years ago now. And the genesis of the story really is, actually, I'm going to throw it back over to you, Greg, because you and Takahiro are really the start of this whole thing. You want to talk about how that started?
Sure. Yeah. When I had my restaurant, I was asked by the Japanese government to pair up with a Japanese producer, and they gave you a list of these producers. And one of them was Wadamon Sesame, and there was a black sesame paste. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And by that time, I was a chef too, like hard-headed, where I'm like, if I'm going to make black sesame paste, I'll do it myself with my own seeds that I have in my kitchen. Lo and behold, like this stuff like blew my mind. Anyways, the deal was I had to use it for a week and like put Wadamon Sesame on there, and I eat it on a dish. Takahiro came in and ate. He had a great meal. We talked. We kind of hit it off, and he invited me to come to Japan to see the factory. And I did and had a wonderful time with him and saw his factory, went to dinner with him. And then he asked, would you import our products? And I entertained the idea. I was like, oh, well, maybe on the side. So, you know, owning a restaurant, it's kind of hard. So a little bit on the back burner, but Chris was sitting in front of me one night eating his skewers, and he had just gotten back from Japan, and we were just talking. He's like, I just filled up my suitcase with a bunch of stuff because I can't get the stuff here. And I was like, so interesting. I've been thinking about doing this, blah, blah, blah. A week later, he calls me. He was like, hey, you want to go into business together? Yeah. Then like literally like a week later after that, I got a call from a restaurant group in Japan that had 200 restaurants of the same name of my restaurant, where they wanted to come to the United States and make San Francisco the first place they dropped. So they saw my restaurant. They said, hey, we want to buy your restaurant. And I hung up on them. And they called back and said, we want to buy your whole name and concept. And at that point, I wasn't really making any money. I was paying my staff and my vendors, but not really myself that well.
Wait, what? You were a restaurant that wasn't making money? Are you serious?
It's crazy, right? Anomaly. That's it. And Chris and I, after that, we ran with it. We jumped on a plane in December of 15 and went to Japan tried to go back to that Japanese government agency and they say, hey, we want to do this. And they looked at us and said, come back when you're a real business. And we since don't really see them too often anymore. Yeah. And then we went out and did it and started. I think our first sales were in like the summer, like May or June of the next year, the 16. And that's where it started. I feel like that's really what we started when we got that first sale. Yeah. The rest is history.
So the whole thing really was based on sort of our similar experiences, me from a consumer, like home cook, and Greg from a restaurant chef, just realizing through our travels over in Japan that there are amazing ingredients over there. And they just had not come to America yet. I mean, you can get great olive oil from Italy or Spain. You couldn't get great soy sauce, that artisanal soy sauce that is over in Japan. And so that was the genesis for the idea of Japanese Pantry. And it's sort of, that's what we're trying to fix, which is bring these amazing ingredients from these amazing producers and introduce them to American home cooks and chefs. These products just really people need to know about them. So that's our job.
And they're still not easy to find outside of, places like the Japanese Pantry.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, they were thankful for that.
Let's keep it that way. Let's start with the sesame paste, because that's actually the first thing that I tried, because first of all, I saw golden sesame paste. I'm like, what? I mean, I know sesame paste, but like I know what black sesames are, so that makes sense that there is black sesame paste, I guess. But first thing I tried was the golden sesame paste. Man, it was incredible. Like when you think about like tahini that you get from let's be honest, like a Roland or something, they're completely different. I have to imagine sesame seeds are not easy to toast. They're cooking them evenly is really difficult. They throw out the pan, things like that. So I have to imagine like the process in which they do it, and the product is probably incredible. And knowing that it comes from Japan, I'm sure they're obsessed with every sort of, piece of that process. But given that was the first product, and let's talk about that for a little bit, about the sesame paste and why the three varietals, why it's so different from what we might think of in America, as we probably don't even say sesame paste. We just, honestly, the ubiquitous thing most people hear is tahini. But what's different about it?
Well, you seem to know this, but there's three varieties of sesame in the world. And I was right with you. I thought it was white and black. And then I thought maybe gold was just a little more toasted white.
Yeah, I didn't know what golden was.
Yeah, when I went to visit, I got this education from Takahiro of Wadamon. And he explained that there's three varieties. And at first I was like, I wanted sesame seeds just from Japan, or Chris and I did. And they're like, we don't grow that much, man. It'll be like 100 times more expensive than what you're getting now. So we found out that white sesame seeds, origins Ethiopia. For golden, it's Turkey. And for black, it's been Bolivian that we're getting. And so they go to these farms and like check them out, like just like how we check out producers in Japan. They go make sure they're doing their good thing, check in, see if they need anything. But what the biggest difference is, especially like if you're going to compare like tahini to tahini, we should probably do the white and the white, because most tahini is made with white seeds from Ethiopia. And so what they do is they keep all the holes on their seeds. So they don't take that outside layer off. They like to keep that on. And so a traditional tahini gets put in a solution. They'll put the seeds in the solution, and generally it's a chemical solution, and it will dissolve the outside husks or holes. But Wadamon doesn't do that. So you get this intense sesame flavor. So like if I'm making a tahini or something and it calls for a cup of tahina, I'll put a half a cup of Wadamon and it will be just enough flavor. If I put a cup in there, it's going to be all sesame. I won't taste chickpeas anymore. So yeah, that's kind of the biggest difference. And for me and Chris, it was the black sesame paste that was life-changing. Like when we took that to restaurants and things like that, they were like, whoa, wow, my food can be black now. I can have this, and there's so much flavor. Like it's just a different plating, of things. It was cool. So yeah.
We can't forget about roasting too.
Oh yeah, roasting's huge.
How do they do that at scale?
It's a large machine, almost like a big coffee roaster. I don't know exactly if it looks like a coffee roaster, but the father, Takehiro's dad, fourth generation, he roasts everything himself. He's been doing it for over 45 years, 6 days a week. He's just the only guy. So he roasts every seed different. Like the white seed is kind of more of a slow roast. The gold, from what we were told, goes in hot and then comes out, and then he does another slow roast in. Black, I think, is more of a gentle roast the whole way through. So each seed is different. They only have one roasting machine. So when they do a run, they do all golden, all white, all black, at a time.
Oh,
so
wow.
There's all these processes. But I mean, before roasting, there's like 12 steps to the seeds where they get them, they sort them, they clean them, they check for things inside the, any metals or stones or anything. And then they'll wash them, dry them, and then it go into a roasting thing. So their seconds and thirds go to other companies that make like sesame oil, like
Yeah.
the sesame oils that we're kind of used to here in the States, not the Wadamon sesame oils.
Do they control the temperature?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
What kind of machinery is that when they're grinding these things?
To me, Greg's right in some ways. It looks like a coffee roasting machine. To me, it kind of looks like the front end of one of those old steam locomotives in some ways, but on a smaller scale. Not a small scale, but on a smaller scale. And it's like there's a tumbler in there and there's heat. And yes, time and temperature is the key, plus the magic of Wada-san, the elder, in terms of, what's it like out today? Is it humid today? Is it hot today? Is it cold today? And it all goes through. And so Takahiro was here with his son not too long ago, showing his 12-year-old son around America. And we were spending days with him. And he was telling me how when he was a kid, they didn't really go on a lot of trips. Like he never did something like that with his family because his dad was in the factory 6 days a week and would get home like late on a Saturday night. So if they went anywhere to do something, it was a day trip, a drive, because it's so fanatical about the quality of the product that he's doing it 6 days a week. And it's partially up to him. And like, how do I tweak the quote unquote recipe today to make sure that this sesame seed comes out the same as the one from yesterday, from last week, from last year?
It's awesome.
It's artisanal. It really is. It really is.
Yeah, it's an incredible product. I'm pissed that I haven't tried the black one now, but I'm gonna have to get
Oh, you
that one
have
next.
it? Oh, yeah.
No. By the way, do you remember the dish you did? You said that you did a dish with the sesame paste.
I did my gyoza. I had gyoza on the menu, and I did my dipping sauce with a black sesame dipping sauce.
Oh, nice.
Week. Yeah.
Nice.
It was delicious.
All right, we're going to weave a bit here. I want to talk about soy sauce, but before we do that, why don't we talk about koji? Because that probably comes a little bit before. I did a project with a chef, pretty well-known chef. We were working on some R&D, and we were looking for this liquid koji, which we couldn't find anywhere other than at the Japanese Pantry. And it is an incredible product. We use it for a ton of things, mostly sauces. But can you talk a little about koji as a whole, in case anybody isn't familiar with what koji is and this liquid form? Because I've never seen a liquid form of koji available outside of what you guys are selling. Why you sell that as opposed to what you typically see, which is sort of like pasty, whatever, thing. And then we'll get to soy sauce after that.
Do you want to hit this with Chris? You want me to do it?
This is chefy. You go for it.
Okay. Interesting. The only reason that we have it and you see it from Hanamaruki is they have a patent for that. And oddly enough, it was a famous chef, a 3-star Michelin chef, came to us and said, "Hey, we want you to import this for us." And Chris and I looked at each other. We're like, "This is the second largest miso manufacturer in Japan. Like, is this product artisanal?" And we're like, "It's not, but you know what it is? It's really freaking cool."
And unique because of that patent.
And unique.
It was unique.
Yeah.
So
let's go back to the basics. So for people that don't know, koji is basically rice that's been inoculated with this type of bacteria. And I always forget the name, so I'm not technically good in that realm. But it's inoculated with bacteria. That rice is generally used to ferment soy sauce, mirin, sake, miso, etc. It's a backbone of Japanese food, really. It flavors those different brews too. Like the koji is almost like a terroir in a way. It's the wrong word, but it gives flavor. So you have this bacteria, this rice that's inoculated. If you add a mixture of water and salt to it and let that ferment for a week, you have shio koji. But shio koji looks like a rice porridge. So, and traditionally in Japan, they use it for their meats and fish. You put your fish in there and you have to either scrape that all off before you cook it or after you cook it. But when we saw this product, it was that porridge put in a sake press and then just got the liquid. Now the uses for this went from like a couple uses to like uses around the world. And we're finding chefs are deglazing with it. They're putting some in cocktails, some in vinaigrettes. And I mean, I know when I first was getting it, I was always like behind my wife's back, like dropping in like a little bit in her soups in here. And then to the point where she's like, "Stop putting it in my effing soups." And then now I see her and she just reaches for it and puts it in her soups because she knows it adds a little umami to it. And it's basically being umami without being MSG. Not that there's anything wrong with MSG, but it's just a cool product. And yeah, we're very thankful for that product.
Yeah, I love it.
And it's also introducing people to koji in that whole world, what they didn't know about, which is awesome.
And just way easier to use. I use it all the time.
100%.
That same way. And we even put it in like dressings as well. And curing egg yolks is really nice with it. I don't know if you know this. I don't know if this is good or not, but I had an extra 6-pack of the shio koji. And there was a bottle at like the back of our cupboard. And I forgot about it. And I found it like a year later. And it's like black.
Yeah.
I tried it. It tastes like almost exactly the same. I don't think I'm going to die, but it goes from that like really like light golden to like this really, really, really dark. And I don't know how or why. Like the bottle's completely closed and sealed. It turns like this dark, dark, dark color.
Yeah, I don't know the science, but that's what they told us about that. Like it'll just get dark.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
We have products that do that. We also have our white tamari, which will do that over time. But it's the same product inside. You're fine, by the way, Josh. You're not going to die with that one.
Well, I'm talking to you today, and I didn't die. My kids seem as healthy as they were, 6 months ago. So I think we're okay.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
You mentioned tamari, so let's start talking about some soy sauce. So what the majority, I think, of at least America knows as soy sauce is completely sort of diametrically opposed to what you taste in the soy sauces when it's an incredible soy sauce, especially the ones that you guys are selling. So let's just start talking about what is soy sauce, why. First of all, I did have a question. Must it be aged in cedar barrels for it to be, is that part of tradition, or is that just what is somewhat common? Or
It's a little bit of both. The kioke barrels, cedar barrels. Yeah, I think kioke is very traditional, very old school. We have a few breweries that do not age in cedar, and they're really good too. But yeah, the kioke is something special. It's it's kind of hard because we have two good soy sauces. One's not aged and one is aged, but the kioke definitely makes the soy sauce very special. That's so much umami and depth, and yeah.
So maybe for a minute we could just chat about the different types of soy sauce that we see, right? There's light and dark, there's tamari, there's shoyu, there's usakuchi, which maybe is a different name. I don't know if that's Korean actually.
No, it's Japanese.
Oh, it is.
What we're used to is that is kikoman here in the States. Let's just say it out loud. Kikoman is a dark soy sauce. So in Japan, there's 5 different classifications of soy sauce. There's a white, a light, dark, sashikomi, which is a double brewed, and then a tamari. So that's the 5 categories of soy sauce. So the white is the white soy sauce that I'm sure you know white soy sauce, but white soy sauce is mostly wheat with a little bit of soybeans. So it's the flip of dark soy sauce. The dark soy sauce, when you ferment soybeans, they oxidize, and hence you have the color. So when you have mostly wheat with a little bit of soy sauce, it's kind of amber. Then you're going to move to light soy sauce, which is kind of almost 50-50. I mean, every brewery's got a little different ratio, 50-50 white to soybeans. And this soy sauce is going to be a cooking soy sauce. It's going to be light in color, not sodium. It's not healthier for you. But this is where you can drop it in a broth and your broth isn't going to really change colors that much. Then the third category, dark, koikuchi, you can drop that in a broth and your broth's going to be very dark. If you've ever been to Japan, there's Osaka, the Kansai region, then you have Tokyo. Tokyo loves koikuchi. So a lot of their broths in Tokyo are dark. A lot of cooking in the Kansai is light. So it's just kind of regional. But then also dark soy sauce you use a lot for you dipping your fish or everyday use I think. Then you have double brewed or sashikomi, which is basically a double fermented soy sauce. So they make soy sauce one time and then they'll go and make the same soy sauce, but they omit water and salt the second time and add the soy sauce they just made. So it's kind of more concentrated or intense. And that soy sauce is really made for dipping your sashimi in. It's got a great soy flavor. We have a great ice cream recipe that we put on our website that we got the idea from the brewer that made it. It's like salty caramel with this umami bomb. You're like, what? This is salty caramel, but there's something else going on. Then lastly, tamari is a category, and tamari does not mean gluten-free. Tamari means something of a pressing. So when you make tamari traditionally in these regions of Japan, you get a byproduct, or not really a byproduct. You get 2 products when you make tamari. You get hacho miso and tamari. The tamari that we sell, a 3-year aged one, they put the soy mash in their cedar barrels, cover with river rocks, age it for 3 years. After 3 years, the liquid's tamari, the solid's hacho miso. So it means something from a pressing. And that can have wheat in it. It doesn't. And generally speaking, when you make soy sauce, you don't get the miso byproduct. That stuff kind of just, they give the pressings from that to cows or livestock or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a brief description of the 5 soy sauces.
Okay. I want to dig into that now a little bit more with each one. But before we get into that, why is Kikkoman and Sanjay the market in America? Why is that all we always find?
I don't know. I just don't think we knew about it. I mean, I think, 20 years ago, I had some guy come in the restaurant I was working at, this portly guy, and just he brought 6 olive oils and put it in front of me. I was like, who is this dude? And then I tasted them and I was like, oh, holy crap, these are so good. I can't go back to the olive oil I was just using. I have to use good olive oil now. And I feel like we're at that time now where we're just introducing people to there is varieties within olive oil. There's varieties within soy sauce for you to use now. And that's it, really. I think we just opened the gate. Good for them, those big companies. They did it and they did it well and they got it across and they still get out there and they're still doing well. So
yeah, I mean, they established the market, and to have a product that you can send to every grocery store in America and have it be the exact same product. You have to produce on an industrial scale. And when you do that, you have to change certain things. I mean, you were talking about the kioke, the cedar barrels, the Japanese cedar barrels. There's only one company that actually makes those. There's actually a consortium of artisanal soy sauce makers who are all coming together and literally working together. They bring people to this place that makes the kioke barrels, and they all make barrels together, even though they're technically competitors, because they have to save that. You can't do that if you want to send a bottle of soy sauce or cases and cases of soy sauce to every grocery store in America. And we're thankful that we don't have to explain to people what soy sauce is, that Kikkoman and Sanjay did that work for us over the last 50 to 70 years. And so that's great. It's kind of like if you're an artisanal ketchup maker, you're sort of thanking Heinz because people know what ketchup is. And they're a certain part of that country that wants something more than Heinz, or something different from Heinz. They're probably still going to have Heinz in their fridge, but they might have some artisanal ketchup.
Heinz is pretty damn good.
Yeah, yeah. I've upgraded the organic Heinz. That's all I've done.
Oh, yeah, there
Changed,
you
but
go. There you go. I imagine that Kikkoman is probably, to the point of the barrels, I'm guessing it's stainless steel that they're using or something.
Massive stainless steel containers. Yeah, absolutely.
They do have a high-end line of Kikkoman, but we don't see that too often. What we're talking about is that mass-produced, like what Chris is saying.
Exactly.
Are there, by the way, like the Almacenistas of sherry, are there like really small batch producers of soy that are using different kinds of barrels, or, or like, I'm thinking about like balsamic, juniper, and bear?
Not that we know of. Do you know why they use cedar, Josh?
No, tell me.
So cedar's not like what happens with oak with wine, where it imparts flavor. Cedar's a very porous wood, so it stores bacteria and kind of like that funk you want, like a sourdough room or a salumi room. You kind of want that bacteria in the air. So it's really important. Like our tamari producer, his youngest barrel is like 155 years old. And because you keep that barrel because it keeps your flavor. That is the flavor of your house. We worked with a soy brewery early on. We kind of stopped working with them, but they had told us the story is they had moved facilities and they had to take some of the wood from their barrels and put them in their new barrels because they just didn't have that flavor, that funk, that distinction in their brew. So it was really important. And that's why kioke is very special. It's theirs. It's, it's Yugetas, it's Yamaki's, it's a Nomura-san. So it's very important.
Maybe we can talk for a second about I'm going to pronounce it wrong, but Harikawaya Nomura, is that the family, the producer?
Yep.
It's like 300-year-old. I imagine it must be at least 3 or 4 generations of people that have been making.
It's 18.
This is crazy. How did you meet them? And is it common for producers of soy to also produce miso?
Yes. How did we meet?
Nomura-san came from Io-san, right?
Io-san, yeah. Our vinegar producer introduced us to Nomura-san.
It's all a series of relationships and being introduced to other people over there. That's how we found the majority of the producers that we work with. We've been introduced from producers that we already work with. So Wada-san introduced us, Doi-san, we got introduced to Io-san, and Io-san introduced us to Nomura-san. It just keeps on going, thank goodness.
Yeah. Are there a lot of families or producers like Nomura? Are they sort of a dime a dozen? Or?
Dime a dozen, no, but there's more than just a little. I mean, they're not a lot.
That came out the wrong way, but you know what I mean.
They're not like everywhere, but yes, they are there. Yeah, and Nomura-san's very special. Like, it's my favorite soy sauce. Sorry, everyone else, if you listen to this, but it's like so special because they've never upgraded any of their methods for 300 years except lights for electricity. So everything they do, like where these other manufacturers that we do, they cook all their soybeans in big propane vats or whatever, and they boil their wheat in these vats. He does everything over a wood fire in these cauldrons, and his koji room is warmed by a wood fire. So it's got this slight smoke to it. And then they've been making these 4 misos for 300 years too, and they're all separate from each other. So, and Nomura-san, if you talk to him, he tells you that he's a koji farmer, and like koji are his kids, and that's what he does. He doesn't make miso or soy sauce. He's a koji farmer because he makes 5 different types of koji, and they're all for his different soy sauce and miso.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Really cool story.
Just so jealous that you guys just get go see these producers so often. It's such a cool job.
We pinch ourselves all the time when we're in Japan. We have these like Anthony Bourdain like experiences. We get to go. This is what I did as a chef. Like when I was a chef, I go visit Mexico City. I'd go see how some food was made or tequila made. But like now I get to do it as a job and then bring it back and show chefs. It's pretty cool.
There's a good story about Nomura-san and misos. We were there and had already been importing his soy sauce and wanted to potentially start importing his miso. But we wanted to talk to him like, all right, these different misos, how do you use them? What is the way that you use them? So his mom went into the kitchen and started making us different miso soups and would sit down with us and would say, oh, no, you should use this. Or, clams go great with this miso soup, not, this other one. It was a pretty special.
Yeah, it was really special
experience. And we wrote everything down and
I bet.
Yeah, absolutely. And shared that.
I'm just getting so excited to just go back on the site and order some more, more stuff. This podcast is brought to you by Mies, the culinary operating system for food professionals. As a chef and restaurant owner for the past 20 years, I was frustrated that the only technology that we had in the kitchen was financial or inventory software. Those are important, but they don't address the actual process of cooking, training, collaboration, and consistent execution. So I decided if it didn't exist, I'd do my best to get it built, so the current and next generation of culinary pros have a digital tool dedicated to their craft. If you're a chef, mixologist, operator, or generally if you manage recipes intended for professional kitchens, Mies is built just for you. Organize, share, prep, and scale your recipes like never before, and get laser-accurate food cost and nutrition analysis faster than you could imagine. Learn more at www.getmies.com. I'm going to skip around a bit because there's a million products we can talk about. And why don't we talk about Katsuobushi or bonito flakes, as what most people might know them. And I learned a little bit today, just reading some more from your website. Actually, you had a really good post about it. And it's funny that, you don't think of skipjack when you think of bonito flakes, first of all, because you think of bonito and they're not the same. I didn't know a lot about the arabushi and karebushi and sort of the different iterations and why the flavor profile is different. I worked at Poulet, which was like we had the suji team come over and cook with us, and we would make dashi and chawanmushi and things like that. We would get the whole bonito and, skipjack maybe and shave it, but I don't think we ever once heard the word arabushi or karebushi or saw different thicknesses of slicing and things like that, which you guys are selling. So maybe we could just chat about, why are there different thicknesses, for people that don't know the difference between arabushi and karebushi and how you guys think about what you're selling in terms of the bonito flakes.
That took us a while. That was the guy in the middle here, Chris. He had to do a lot of red tape to get that over here. Just what you need to do to import kind of fish. But yeah, it's the thickness of the shavings depends on how much you steep it in the, so if it's thicker, it steeps 20 to 30 minutes. If it's really thin, 30 seconds, all you need to do. And Josh, there's like chefs, when they hear the word fermentation, oh yeah, I want that. So, every chef wants the fermented shavings, fermented like thick, thin. But they really don't know what they want because here in the States, we like things that are strong in flavor. Like we want intense flavor. So arabushi is non-fermented. And this is a 3-month process. Where karebushi is the fermented, and that's a 6-month process. They're all the same. Like you need arabushi to make karebushi. So let's go through the steps. You get the skipjack tuna loins. They cut them up and then they poach them. And then they smoke them and then they dry them.
Just in water?
Yeah, water. Yeah, it's
not dashi.
That'd be cool if they did, yeah.
It's kind of making its own, isn't it?
Yeah, true. That's 3 months is to cook, smoke, and then dry. And that's arabushi. And so when you make a dashi with that, think about like slicing that on your, slicer, or you get that intensity of the outside of the loin. When you have your broth, you have that very smoky kind of, fishy is the wrong word, but that aroma, that flavor is really in that broth. Now, karebushi is, let's take that further. So let's go through the steps again. It's cooked, smoked, dried. And then for karebushi, they inoculate it with bacteria a couple times and then dry that again in the sun. And then on the outside of the loin, it becomes kind of fuzzy, like a mold sets. So when they shave that, you don't get that intensity of the smoke anymore. It's very gentle. So what you get more of is this aroma. So like you had mentioned a chawanmushi, like when you have a chawanmushi, you have a top generally, and you open that top and it comes in front of you, the aroma comes at you, and that's where you get this flavor. And then all the other ingredients inside your chawanmushi kind of stand out more. Where if you're using arabushi, it's still going to be good, but it's going to be a heavy intensity of katsuobushi flavor in here rather than the egg and whatever ingredients you have in there. So here, when people are always asking, like chefs in particular, I'm like, what are you using it for? Oh, dashi. Okay. What are you using your dashi for? Oh, well, I'm adding it to this, this, and this. I'm like, okay, you want this. And they're like, no, I really want to ferment it. I'm like, no, trust me on this. Like, this is what you want. Oh, thanks, man. I didn't realize I wanted that, So it's like, it's been a big learning curve for both Chris and I. It took me a while, like years ago, maybe 4 years ago, like I kind of understood konbu. It clicked one day. I was like, oh, I get the difference. I get the difference in cooking now. I can taste the difference. Same thing's happening with Katsuobushi for me, like a little while ago, maybe 6 months ago. I'm really starting to understand how to use it and where to use it.
I'm excited to get some more of it now.
I mean, they have such a rich history of food. It's hard to jump in and be an expert right away, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, it takes a while.
I think that's just what's so beautiful about Japanese cooking and Japanese cuisine is there's just this maniacal approach to doing one thing so well, and just which makes for a very simple cuisine and also for a very difficult cuisine to do well, because you don't have it's very few ingredients and you're just respecting them. But to create those kinds of products requires like this culture of, obsession really, which is cool, especially as a chef. But I was always curious why we've seen the whole bonito that we shave on the shaver, but that's not very often, right? It's almost exclusively what you can find, at least in any store you go to. If you go to H Mart or something, like it's all you get is the shaved things. Why are the whole fillets not imported more? Because I would assume it's easier to import that than shaving it and then importing.
No, the opposite. The red tape is the opposite way, actually, Josh. When you're bringing in a loin of fish, you have to be able to trace all the way back the chain of custody to where the fish was caught. And it's not the same when it is shaved. And there's lots of red tape about the different programs and the HTS code, which is the duty code, et cetera. It's just...
That seems so backwards.
It kind of is, and it's very, very frustrating. But that's the case. So
yeah,
if you want to,
all right,
you got to trace it all the way back to the net.
All right. Well, you just talked about bonito flakes, so naturally, why don't we talk about some konbu for a minute?
Let's not say bonito flakes anymore, okay?
Yeah.
Oh
exactly.
yeah, I know. That's all I'm so used to that. Katsuobushi is that?
Katsuobushi.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Katsuobushi.
Yeah.
So you have this really cool sort of map of Japan as well, and it looks like basically everything comes from the south, other than konbu and maybe a couple other things in the central part, but it seems like the only thing here that really comes from the north part is the konbu. Is there any particular reason for that? And then we'll dig into konbu in general.
Wow, that's a good question. I'll let Chris take that one.
Yeah, so far, not really. I can make up reasons, but I'm not going to. Let's just say it's unexplored territory for us, things that we can go to. Obviously, you have differences in weather, which may have an impact in terms of what's where, but it's just potential opportunity for us, I think. We've been up there a few times now, and it's beautiful. But yeah, our map is kind of odd in that way.
So konbu, I think I think most chefs, unless you're really digging into this, we just know konbu, right? It's just seaweed, so you can make dashi.
100%, yeah.
What else should we know that we wouldn't know about? First of all, I didn't realize the entire process of it or the aging process either. So I'd love to hear more about that too.
Yeah, kombu is fascinating because you had just touched on, like as a chef, when I had my restaurant, I just got the kombu that they brought me, and then I'd be like, then they have these like California like hippies up on the coast being like, hey man, I just got this kombu. I'm like, cool, I'll take that. And yeah, they tasted different, but I didn't know the difference. Like I really didn't. And now I feel like stupid about it. Now with all the knowledge I have, I'm like, oh, I was really blasphemous in what I was using. Yeah, we found out like the kombu that's grown on the California coast, from what we understand from the Japanese, is that kombu is kind of used more for cosmetics. It's not really a really good tasting kombu. They're right. It tastes like iron, kind of irony, almost like a warm brackish water smell. It's not super delicious. And then so we've got introduced to like 5 different varieties of eating kombu in Japan, and we on our retail website carry 3 of them, and they're like the best for dashi. And they're all different regions of where they're grown, like the ma kombu is from the south of Hokkaido, the Rouse is of the eastern side, and the western side is Rashiri kombu. And they're all different. And I would say primarily for our wholesale, we don't do the ma kombu wholesale. Ma kombu harvest has been very bad in these past years, so we just do it small for retail. So for our wholesale, we do Rouse and Rashiri. And like Rashiri is like, if you're making a dashi and your dashi is the focus of the dish, you want to use Rashiri because Rashiri is going to give you the best dashi. Now, if you're making a dashi that you're going to add flavorings to or add different you want to use Rouse kombu because Rouse is a great supporting kombu. Like it's going to highlight more of the ingredients than the Rashiri would. So yeah, it's interesting. And like if you're wrapping fish, you use the Rouse, not the Rashiri. I mean, you can use both of these for both of them, but as we geek out into it, we're finding that there's different uses for all these.
Yeah. And what is the aging process like?
Oh, yes. They harvest it from the water and they'll lay on the beaches to kind of dry. And then they'll age it for about 2 years and kind of inside of like, I don't know how to describe it. We've actually never seen it in person. So we've only seen it from video. We've tried to go see the harvest once, and we got stymied by what do you call it, a typhoon or something. Anyways, it's similar to like a tobacco aging room where it needs air to come through, but they kind of lay them and just let them age for 2 years, and they can age them up to longer too. So,
And when there are different types of kombu using or different katsuobushi, I'm used to sort of and maybe there's many different sort of ways people make dashi, but I'm used to like the 1, 2, 10, like 1% kombu, 2% katsuobushi, and 10% water. But do you find you're using different amounts based on the type of kombu?
So it's interesting. I got a recipe from all 3 of the producers, and they're almost identical on like what they use. The variation was so slight that, we just kind of our recipe on our website is kind of a recipe of all 3 of those kind of in their recipes from the weight.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, we're on the sea. I'm going to jump to the land a little bit because I've never had a shiitake like the one that I had from you guys. It's just the taste, like it's so much stronger and like earthier and almost like smoky, and it's completely different from what we think of as shiitakes that we buy here, especially the fresh ones. These are dried that we get. But I'd love to learn a little bit like the producer. Is this sort of the common practice there? And also just, do they grow them differently? Is it a different varietal? Does like the oak that they're using, I think they use like sawtooth oak. Does that affect the flavor? Yeah, I just love to sort of dig into that because they're a very unique product, at least from what I've experienced.
You want to talk about an Anthony Bourdain level experience. Our introduction to shiitake mushrooms was one early morning on the side of a mountain. It was a gorgeous day, and we met up with this old couple of them who are shiitake farmers. And over the course of the morning, not only did we learn about how they grow their shiitake, they showed us all the different parts of the process in terms of those sawtooth oak logs that you're talking about, how they drill small holes into those logs and then inoculate them with the spores of the shiitake, how they have to basically age those, and then how they then take those eventually and put them in the woods. That's where the shiitakes grow, off of these sawtooth logs that are all kind of standing up.
Like an X formation, right?
Yeah, and an X formation on barbed wire strung between trees. And then we harvested some, and they had built a small fire, and we grilled them up and ate them with soy sauce and, well, actually it was margarine, but it probably should have been butter, but that's okay. It still tasted amazingly delicious. And just standing there overlooking this beautiful valley with the sun out and shiitakes all around us, and shiitakes we had picked 5 minutes ago, was pretty amazing.
Those experiences are just, like those are the kind of things that change you. 25 plus years ago, I was in Norway on a boat in the middle of the Atlantic with Chef Eric Repair and Rick Moonen and a couple of food writers, and then just these fishermen, and just taking these live scallops. And there was this tiny island, and literally all we did was grill the scallops whole in the shell and just like that. And I don't think I've ever had anything better in my whole life.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
Totally.
That's, I think, what is amazing about products, whether they're just pristine because they're just fresh to the water, or they're just so much care taken to them. Like a shiitake mushroom, million things with how you're going to cook it, but like something like that, when it's such a beautiful product, just grilled over, I don't know if they're binchutan, charcoal, or if it's just for wood and some salt, it's just like there's just nothing better. I'm jealous. Is that practice, and is what they're growing sort of like that's just the ubiquitous way in which it's done in that area, and how did you meet that family?
That is the traditional way that it's done. What's more ubiquitous is to grow them on sort of a growth substrate, or, that they put in a building. So you have these cubes of this stuff that you can grow mushrooms on, and they'll do that in a controlled environment. But, it's a little bit not the same.
How do you see folks using these? Because, they're dried, right? So it's not like you're searing them. And like and maybe this is a question for you, Greg, but like what do you see them most often used in?
Mostly dashis. You make a dashi or a braise or something like that. And then you can use that mushroom afterwards too. It's not like you have to throw it out, because they're meaty. They're delicious. Like, you can't be passed as a fresh mushroom, but as a cooked mushroom, it's a really good mushroom. So we see a lot in dashis. Like, we have a restaurant, that really famous restaurant here, that kind of went more plant-based, and they're really using a lot of our mushrooms because it's got such a meaty flavor. It's got a ton of umami to it. They're just using that in their dashis to add umami to things. And yeah, it's a pretty special product.
I pickled some. They were really good.
Cool.
I just reconstituted them in some liquid, and then took that liquid and made a soy-based pickle liquid, and they're in my fridge. I just because I love, they're just so simple as is. I just literally just eat them as snacks.
That's awesome. The one we get is the Dunko, which means the thick cap one. There's a thin cap, and I'm forgetting the name, Chris, if you remember, help me out. But the Dunko one is like the most prized. It's thicker, more intense. Also, if the cap's got a flower to it, like a flower top, that's really prized. I think that's for aesthetic. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're really special. And, it's like if you've been mushroom hunting, like when they told us to go in the forest, after they told us how the Shakis were grown, and then we looked and we saw all the mushrooms going up, it was like, wow, really open your eyes. And then I just remember driving back because we had to go back to the factory where they actually dry the mushrooms and produce them and package them. I remember like driving past a couple things where I looked in the forest and I saw like mushrooms like grown. It's like you don't see it unless you know it's there. Like you said, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I bet there's probably like families who just like grow a little bit of their own, shiitake as well if they're living up there.
Yeah, 100%. They don't buy from one farmer. They buy from a bunch of different farmers because like all these farmers will bring them to their dried shiitakes to the market and they get to pick which ones they want, and so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
We see that a lot in Japan, like where a lot of the konbu people do the same thing. They bring all their konbu or all their nori and then people pick the lots they want and things like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, we were just talking about pickling, and there's also some like insane vinegars you guys have. The fig vinegar is like ridiculous. But even just the rice vinegar, I think I want to talk about that because I listened to a talk or something you guys were talking about sort of this vertically integrated vinegar producer that's like everything from the rice that's grown to producing the sake, and then the amount of rice that's needed to call it rice vinegar and the amount that they're actually using. So can we talk about that story a little bit and, what we think of as rice vinegar and what the difference between that and what you guys are actually selling?
Yeah. So Io Jozo, the vinegar producer, when we were introduced to that, it was very special. We realized we were at the pinnacle of rice vinegar. But yeah, they, like you said, they grow a lot of their rice, not all of it, but they grow some of the rice. And it's kind of cool is they have their customers come out every year during the planting and they'll come out and help plant and they'll also come out and help harvest. So it's a small thing, but it's almost like this yearly tradition of having them come out. So it's really cool.
You mean the community comes out and does it?
Yeah, like some customers, even from they'll come from all the way from Tokyo. This is Miyazaki, or not Miyazaki,
Miyazu.
Woo. Yeah. We're going to Miyazaki in a week, so that's why it's on my mind. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, what you said is what they'll do is they'll harvest the rice, but they'll also buy rice from outside, and they make a traditional Japanese sake, and then ferment that in a vinegar, which most breweries don't do that anymore. Only a very few do. Most vinegar breweries take outside alcohol and then brew that into vinegar. And then the stuff that you find in the supermarkets, like say go into Whole Foods, that vinegar takes 2 days to make. Jozo's 2 years from field to bottle. So it's a truly artisanal vinegar. And as you mentioned, the classification for a 900 milliliter bottle in Japan, or a liter bottle, you have to have 40 grams of rice per liter included in there to be classified as a rice vinegar. So Jozo starts out with 200 grams in a liter bottle. That's their base vinegar. And then they have their premium, which is 320 grams. I think all their vinegars are great. But that pure vinegar, I was like, this is amazing. And then I tried their premium and I was like, holy cow, this is even like better. Like, this is incredible. And that's just to double the amount of rice that's made in there. And it just adds
8 times the amount of rice that you would typically put, was constituted as rice vinegar, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If you're looking at it that way, for sure.
What does that mean for the flavor for people that haven't had this? I've had it. It's insane. And it's not, what we would think of using rice vinegar for. Most of that you probably wouldn't do. But for people that haven't had it, what does that do to the flavor?
Well, it actually has flavor now. Like rice vinegar that we get here is like it's just acid, really, right? It's just like it's acid. It's really clean and crisp and done. This actually has flavor. Like this, especially the premium, you can really taste the sake. You can taste the sake and get the nuances. Like when I taste this, chefs oftentimes say, this is the first time I think I've ever had true rice vinegar, because they've always been having the crap stuff. Like, and me too. I did not until I went to Japan for the first time. I had never experienced really good rice vinegar.
It also has like the viscosity, I feel like, is a little bit different as well. It's not that it's that much thicker. It is a little bit, but the mouthfeel also is like it coats your mouth a little bit more than like typical vinegar. And that's, some of that's the viscosity, but something I just feel like it has this sort of like, just like a little bit of a different mouthfeel than a typical vinegar.
Yeah. Jozo told us that they had their pure vinegar for the longest time, but they had some customers that were like, that's a good vinegar, but it smells too strong for us to use. I don't want to use it. So that's why they developed the premium. They went back and developed this premium because the premium's got like a more gentle smell and it's gentle, So yeah, I always tell chefs, like, if you're using the premium, you want to taste that vinegar. You want that vinegar taste in your dish. If you're using just vinegar in the salad dressing, use the rice vinegar, like the pure, because it's going to be more up to your speed.
Yeah. What's something that you've used that rice vinegar for that you really like?
Everything. I don't know. I use it all the time. It's really hard to, I don't know. I use it on salads. I'm making nanbanzuke on Monday. So I'm actually buying the brown rice vinegar for that taking it, not really buying, I'm getting it to use for, yeah. So, I use it for everything, really, like everything you use or vinegar for. Caught me off guard with that. But
No, it's it. I mean, it's like when I tasted it the first time, I was like, oh man, I gotta, it's like I have to think about this differently. I used it on duck breast as like almost like a gastrique, but without cooking, much. Just like some, some honey and I think some sancho pepper or something, and that rice vinegar. It was so good. I mean, that was it. Like, because you taste so much that that rice. So we don't have much time left. So maybe if you want to pick one more product, and I want to kind of wrap up with some, just a little bit more that we can learn about the Japanese pantry and how chefs can learn more. The Japanese brown sugar is like a really cool one.
You're right.
That could be a quick one though too. We could go into spices if you have time, because the spices are special. Like,
sure.
But the sugar is amazing. It's kind of one of those things, like Chris and I were like, I was like, we need to bring sugar. And Chris is like, oh, how much? This is going to be popular. Man, we sell so much of this sugar now. It's crazy. But like every time we introduce it to someone, they're like, what? So it's Okinawa brown sugar, and it comes from an island called Hataruma, which is a coral island. So you pick up the terroir from the island. So it's a very tobacco mineral-based sugar. I mean, it's a sugar. It's a cane sugar. It's sweet, but it is not super sweet. It's not like brown sugar out of a box sweet. It's different. It is just its own wonderful beast. We sell this to bars, bakeries, restaurants, rum producers. Like, it's pretty special stuff.
Oh, rum. Yeah, man. I bet that's really good for even making spirits. Wow. I never thought about that. At Boulé, we used to do a dish with lobster, and we would just take some Japanese brown sugar, start to lightly caramelize it, and then glaze a watermelon cube in it. Don't know why we did that, but it was delicious. But that was the first time I ever had Japanese brown sugar. I mean, that was like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So let's wrap up with the spices, because it sounds like there's a lot of juice there.
I'll let you start there, Chris.
The spices that we bring in from Miyamatsu Tsujita is really like many of the other products that we have. It is driven by the person and the personality that runs that company. So Tsujita-san is a personality that is, first of all, he's a mountain of a man. He is so tall. He is like the third best in his age group. Kendo, which is that one where they have the mask on and the stick and they hit each other. He even has a Kendo dojo, so the gymnasium, so to speak, of his own on the facility there in just outside of Osaka, where their factory is, or their facility. I would call it our facility. And his passion and dedication shows in his products, including the fact that he sort of single-handedly, along with a few farmers, saved this Japanese variety of hot pepper, so small hot peppers called takanotsume, which is the hawk's claw pepper.
You say hawk's claw?
Hawk, H-A-W-K, hawk's claw.
Oh, hawk.
Claw of the hawk. Pepper that is just super spicy, but also has flavor. It has the right balance. And he uses that in his Shichimi Togarashi 7-spice. He also is connected with, you were talking about Sancho earlier, Sancho farmers. He actually mixes 3 different kinds of Sancho in his Sancho powder. His spices are just amazing, and they have so much flavor there. And they come with his seal of quality of his own that just by meeting this man and just seeing his passion. It's just amazing. And then
we had to agree to keep his spices frozen and bring them over by air, or else he would not sell to us. So that was a bone of contention. And then even like, we're always like, well, how do they sell them in the big department stores? Because we see them on the shelves. And he says that he's got deals with them and everything, and they do this and that. And then he tells us, like, because we sell these little tins now that you can put the spices into. And he says that you really should keep them always in that bag and just put a little bit in a tin for you to use at the table. Like, he's so
right.
Like this way. And then, he's got these yuzu trees for the yuzu sashimi that they're like 60 years old, but they didn't fruit until 20 years, into their life.
Oh,
so they're like super special. And teases us with this yuzu kosho that he has that we can't, it's too small of a production. We wouldn't be able to import it, but
yeah,
he's always like, you guys have to bring it over frozen. But Takahiro when he came just a couple weeks ago with his son, brought us one each from Sujita, saying, "This is from Sujita." So
Yeah.
we know we're in his mind, and he likes us. So that's good.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Well, yeah, it's funny, we usually only see like that S&B togarashi.
Yes.
Maybe for a minute, if you don't mind, just talk about what is togarashi and the difference between an incredible one and maybe the commodity one. I mean, look, the one we get pretty good. We don't really know much else, but what is togarashi?
Togarashi basically means pepper. So you have to use something in front of that. Like, so there's ichimi togarashi, means single spice, and then tsuchimi togarashi, which is 7 spice. So ichimi togarashi is basically chili pepper. The 7 spice is the one you're talking about, the S&B that we see with like sesame seeds.
Yeah.
Awa nori, which is a variety. It's not, it's a type of seaweed. It's not nori though. Usually sometimes ginger, chili flakes, Sancho peppers in there, a citrus of some sort, yuzu. Some people put, why am I blanking? Shiso's in there, and there's something else too. Amaranth is sometimes in there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. And so what the difference of Sujita-san's is to S&B is quality of ingredients. And I think might be a good place to stop too, because like we didn't say this in the beginning, but like when Chris and I were coming up with the name of our company, Chris was saying, "Oh, should we be Washuku this?" And I was like, "I don't know. We're just trying to fill a Japanese pantry." He goes, "Bingo, that's it. The Japanese Pantry." And then because all we're trying to do is we know like that most home cooks and most chefs in the country have a bottle of soy sauce and vinegar in their pantry. All we want to do is show you that there's another whole level up there. Like there's a high level of that. And so we just want to show you that you can upgrade your pantry. That's all we're doing really. We're just bringing over better ingredients that are available.
Well, thank you for doing that. Honestly, you guys have incredible products, and I don't know where else we would find them. It is a great place to stop because otherwise we'll go down rabbit holes of furikake and yuzu juice and all kinds of other stuff. So let's end it there with how can chefs learn more about Japanese Pantry? It's a pretty easy website, fine, but how can they find the products and how can they buy them?
Sure. Well, we have distributors around the country, but the easiest way is just to email us, sales@thejapanesepantry.com. You can also go onto our website, and then you'll find there's a wholesale section where you can contact us through that, and then we'll figure out the best way to get you the products. And if you are looking on our website, the vast majority of the products on our website are available on a wholesale basis, and quite often, they're available in a much larger size. That's much better for a restaurant kitchen.
Yeah.
So sales@thejapanesepantry.com. That email goes to me, it goes to Greg, it goes to Kevin, our colleague. We will not miss it, and we'll get back to you.
And we have distributors in a lot of major cities too. So if you're in Los Angeles, we'll introduce you to our great distributor down there.
Yep.
And that kind of thing. So yeah,
It's great.
it's that easy.
Chris, Greg, this was awesome. Thanks so much for coming on and chatting.
Josh, thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Next time I'm out in San Francisco, I will, if there's some way to see that facility, where all that stuff is, I'll come check it out.
Yeah, please come.
Yeah,
Let's break some bread too.
that'd be great.
All right, cool.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks for tuning into the Mies podcast. The music from the show is a remix of the song Art Mirror by an old friend, hip-hop artist, Fresh Daily. For show notes and more, visit getmees.com/podcast. That's GETMEEZ.com/podcast. If you enjoyed the show, I'd love it if you can share it with your fellow entrepreneurs and culinary pros, and give us a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. Keep innovating, don't settle, make today a little better than yesterday, and remember, it's impossible for us to learn what we think we already know. See you next time.